Wizard of Oz through the lens of A Course in Miracles becomes almost a map of the spiritual journey from projection back to remembrance. Dorothy begins in dissatisfaction. Somewhere else must hold the answer. That is the ego's foundational move. Salvation is elsewhere, some future, some person, some achievement, some special condition, some different world over the rainbow. The tornado is important. A tornado uproots orientation completely. ACIM often describes awakening beginning through disorientation, loss of certainty, collapse of familiar identity, disruption of perceptual stability. The ego experiences this as chaos. Spirit can use it as interruption. Then Dorothy lands in Oz, a dreamlike symbolic world populated by exaggerated psychological archetypes, very ACM-like. Oz operates according to emotional symbolism rather than rational consistency, much like the ego thought system itself. Fears become characters. Desires become quests. Authority becomes theatrical. Appearances dominate perception. Dorothy immediately believes she must journey somewhere external to find resolution. Again, ACM would say, the mind projects outward and then seeks outside itself for what was never absent. The yellow brick road resembles the spiritual path itself. But notice, the road does not ultimately give Dorothy something new. It gradually reveals what was already present. That distinction matters deeply in ACM. The Course is not about self-improvement in the egoic sense. It is about uncovering what was never truly lost beneath confusion and misidentification. Now look at the companions. Scarecrow believes he lacks a brain, yet he demonstrates insight repeatedly. The ego always convinces the mind it is deficient, not wise enough, not ready enough, not worthy enough. ACM would say the belief in lack is itself part of the illusion. The Scarecrow seeks externally for what is already functioning within him. Then Tin Man believes he lacks a heart, but he is the most emotionally sensitive of the group. Again, the ego creates identity around absence. I am incomplete. Yet, the very search often reveals the hidden presence of what was assumed missing. The cowardly lion believes he lacks courage, while courage is demonstrated every time he continues despite fear. ACIM makes a subtle distinction here. Fear may arise within the dream, but identity need not be built from it. The lion thinks fear defines him. The miracle reframes fear as passing weather within awareness. And Toto matters more than people often realize. Toto is the one who exposes the wizard. Instinct, innocence, simple seeing, not intellectual sophistication. Toto pulls back the curtain. That scene is profoundly ACIM-like. Wizard of Oz appears as an all-powerful authority. Giant face, fire, thunder, fear, performance. But behind the spectacle is a frightened little man manipulating appearances. That resembles the ego itself almost perfectly. The ego survives through theater, projection, drama, image, threat, complexity. ACIM does not portray the ego as an evil cosmic force. More often, it is exposed as empty performance sustained through belief. The moment the curtain is pulled back, the spell weakens. Not because the images disappear instantly, but because their claimed authority collapses. That is central to forgiveness in ACIM, seeing false authority as false. And then comes the deeper revelation. Dorothy could return home the entire time. The power was never absent. This is one of the strongest parallels with ACIM. The Course repeatedly says salvation is not acquisition, but remembrance. The ego says you must become worthy. You must achieve enlightenment. You must earn God. Spirit says what you seek is already given. But notice something psychologically important. Dorothy still needed the journey. Not because truth was far away, but because experience gradually loosened her attachment to illusion. That is often how awakening unfolds. The answer may already be present, yet the mind may need to exhaust its faith in external substitutes before it can genuinely receive simplicity. There is also the famous line, "There's no place like home." ACM would reinterpret home beyond geography. Home is not Kansas versus Oz. Home symbolizes the restoration of inner wholeness, the remembrance of reality beyond fragmentation. And unlike many fantasy stories, Oz itself is not ultimately demonized. That is important. The dream can become a classroom rather than a prison. Even illusions can serve awakening when reinterpreted. Fear becomes instruction. Relationship becomes mirror. Symbols become communication devices. ACIM calls this the forgiven world, the same appearances, but now serving awakening instead of reinforcing separation. And perhaps the deepest overlap is this. Everyone in Oz thinks they need something added to themselves, a brain, a heart, courage, power, worthiness. But the entire journey reveals that essence was never missing. Only belief in lack was.